Yeah. You said at the start of the interview, you had a tick list, and you said now you've already hit 2 of them within 2 years of being at the club. Ireland call up must have been all your dreams coming true at once.
Yeah, it was an insane. It was, I can't describe it because it was such an intense time. It was such an intense time, and it's only when you look back on it now and you magnify it all into a story, and you're trying to capture it all in this kind of instant over a webcam. But just the intensity of it, the level of energy that's required to get to those spaces and to get to those, the mentality, as we said earlier on, that emotional roller coaster that oftentimes is not really looked on or looked upon on footballers, but it's starting to come into, awareness of what footballers go through on a day-to-day level, on a week-to-week level. And I know it's part of our jobs and what we do and everything else, and we get well paid for it, but still at the end of the day, there's still a human element to it. And oftentimes I think in football nowadays is, we as players, we often lose that humanistic side towards fans and that level of connection. I love the German game at the moment. I love the way they connect with their fans. I love the way the fans and the players go hand in hand. Yeah. And that was something I always tried to incorporate into when I played at the club, when I met the fans or give them my time, or whenever I see them and stuff like that. So it was always a key part of it, and I think it's a key part for the game going forward.
You must have had not at this point, but some lonely times in goal at the Den. You hear more than most with the fans behind you. You must have had some interactions with fans.
Yeah, we had some absolute belters, absolute some cracking moments and some cracking times. I remember when I first came to the club, and this is probably going back to the Swindon game, my first home game and stuff like that. Fans coming down and just hurling abuse at me, and I was kind of still at that immature stage where I'd be turning around and hurling abuse back at them, and then people are coming over to me saying, you can't be actually doing that, you can't actually do that. And then Tony Burns pulled me one day and he said, look, David, he says, you just focus and concentrate in the game. He says, whether it's at Millwall or any other club, he says, this is vitally important. He says, as a goalkeeper, you cannot let anyone see that they have affected you in any way, shape or form. You just got to have, blinker vision and just focus on that game. And, but yeah, we had some amazing times.
To wrap up this season, the 2010-11 season, I just picked out a couple of games. We did the double over Crystal Palace that year. That's always a brilliant away day for Millwall fans, but we always seem to get a result against them. 1-0 at St.Ledger'S Park.
Is that when the fans charged the gate, was it?
Maybe, I don't know.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think they let themselves in that day. Yeah. So that was an interesting one. I think Mark Beaver scored a header that day, or was that 1-1? That was a different game.
That was a different game. And then the home game, we beat them 3-0. Jason Punchin hat-trick, who was on loan at the time. I think he only played 7 games on loan for us. What a hat-trick that was.
Oh, it was a disaster though, because one, that we lost Jason Punchin after that.
Yeah.
And he was on 2 goals, and I'll never forget it. I'll never forget Kenny at the time when he scored the 2 goals. Kenny was like, right, get him off, because he knew if this lad scores another goal, I think they had agreed to do a deal with him to sign him full time.
Oh, really?
And he had, yeah. They had it more or less agreed that Punch was signed, and he was a revelation for us. He'd take the ball, he'd run it down to the corner flag, he'd cut across, he'd come back over around the box, over across the D, over to the other corner flag. Then he'd take it back over to the other corner flag, and no one could get the ball off him. It was like a 5-a-side. He was brilliant. And I used to call him Joker Face. He just had such a big smile, such a big playful smile. And what a player. And he was electric for us. He really made a difference for us. He probably could have taken us on to that next level. And Kenny was shouting at Joe Gallen and Adrian, the kit man, get him off, get the sub on. Next thing, Kenny turns around, wallop, 3rd goal, hat-trick, and Kenny's just like, everyone else is going mental, and Kenny, you can just see Kenny going like this.
His price has just gone shot through the roof.
Yeah, and then he knew he was out of Millwall's league, and I think I don't know, did he go back to Southampton or go back to Palace that time or whatever happened, but it wasn't to be so. Yeah, that was that game. I remember that.
At one point, Andros Townsend at one point as well as a loanee that same season.
Yeah, Andros was the ultimate professional. You can see why he's gone on to had the career, and he scored some fantastic goals as well. He used to come in and he'd have this bowl of cold pasta, and that was his pre-match. He'd cook all his own food, and he absolutely looked after himself. Yeah, he was a great lad.
So the 2011-2012 season was our second back in the Championship. 16th we finished that season. Not as good, but that can happen second season, can't it? A little bit of second season syndrome.
Yeah, I think the momentum and the adrenaline and the excitement, teams getting to know you. There's many, many different things there that come into play in that situation. Like, there's many variants, and certainly for us, we found it difficult. I think Kenny tried to bring it on to another level. I think he made a couple of signings. I think Darius Henderson came in, which when he played and was fit, he was amazing. And then other times, at big times when we needed him, he picked up niggles and he picked up knocks, which kind of killed the momentum and killed the flow. I think was that the year we got to Wembley? Was that the semi-final year?
No, that's the next season. But it's funny that what you keep saying. You're literally leading perfectly onto my notes and everything. So your memory of the club's unbelievable. So in there, I had players out: Harris, Morrison, and Tony Craig. Players in: Shane Lowry, Darius Henderson. So yeah, I like
Lowry's goal at Charlton, by the way. Do you remember that? I don't know, was that year or the following year when he scored a worldie from about 50 yards?
Free kick, left
but
foot.
Anyway, yeah, and that was big as well. Neil leaving the club. That was like you take into account, and oftentimes you look at clubs where they get rid of key figures like that. The void and the gap they leave. Like they mightn't be necessarily doing it on the pitch, but what they do in terms of team spirit and team bond, and in terms of that gel and bond and everyone together is invaluable, really.
Yeah, Darius Henderson. You wouldn't want to have a row with him, would you? Meet him down a dark alley.
Oh yeah, Hendo was a big guy, like
I liked him. He's good.
Hendo was a big guy. I'll never forget it. We played Leicester. I haven't actually told many people this story, and we played Leicester, and this story is just coming to me now. And we're up at the Walker Stadium, and Kasper Schmeichel's in goals. And Kasper Schmeichel kicks it like an absolute mule, like he used to smash balls all over the park, like So I'm there doing my warm up with Tony Burns. And who was the sub keeper at the time? I can't remember who was the sub keeper at the time. So we're warming up, and next thing these balls start coming in like incoming missiles, like they were like bouncing beside us and just missing us. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm trying to do my warm up here. This is quite disrespectful. So I was like, hang on a second, like this isn't like etiquette, like this isn't goalkeeping etiquette, this isn't being part of the union here, like
Yeah.
But Burnsy's like, forget about it, just focus on the game. And I was like, no, he's acting the prick, right? So Burnsy's like, nah, forget about it. I said, nah, I'm not. So I caught one ball, another ball just misses my head. It's come about 95 yards down the far end of the pitch. So I take off running past Burnsy, push him out of the way, and I take up jogging towards the halfway line. So Kasper sees me, and we had a good working relationship, Kasper. So he sees me and he thinks I'm coming up to say hello to him. So he starts jogging over towards me like that, and he goes, "Oh, you 40, whatever, how are you doing?" like that. And I says, "Pull that stunt again, and I'm going to rip your head off." I said, "You're taking the piss now, right?" So he goes, he's stunned, and then the goalkeeping coach comes over. I think Mike, what's his name? Mike, he's still there, and he says something, whatever. Burnsy comes in, and he says, "Yeah, you're fucking out of order. What you're doing, you're taking the piss, right?" So we're going, right, we're going to have it, like, So we go down, go to warm, but that got me going for the game. I was like, right, here we go. So I come in for the warm up, and I'm getting my kit on, and I'm irate at this stage, and I'm giving this absolute speech, and I'm like, right, lads, we have these. I said, that first ball into the box, I said, someone just go in and smash Kasper Schmeichel. Someone get their head in it. First, what do we get? We get a corner. First ball in. Kasper Schmeichel goes for it. Endo comes in. Absolutely buries him into the net. I'm like this. Come on. Happy days. All my Christmases came at once. I think we won 3-0, like, Brilliant. And when he was fit and playing, and when he was a handful like that, he was top class, yeah.
I bet Kasper didn't do that the following week at the Walker Stadium. The old long kicks.
Yeah. I don't think I've talked to Kasper since, but anyhow, these things happen. It was worth it for that.
Another player said King Kenny was renowned for getting loans from Premier League clubs. We said Andros Townsend and Jason Punchin. Sorry, but of course this was the season that Harry Kane come to the club.
Yeah,
Harry Kane at Millwall.
I remembered Harry being just absolutely a sports Billy, like absolutely brilliant, whatever he did. Like he'd be like, "Yeah, I played golf or whatever." He's like, "Yeah, I shot 25 under. I was like, you should be in the Masters, lad. You know what I mean? You're in the wrong sport. He was like, yeah, I'm just after having a game of snooker the day before. How'd you go on? Yeah, I had about 4-1-4-7s. Do you know what I mean? I just hitting 180s there for fun in me sleep. Like, that's the type of guy he actually was. And when he came in like that, he was just learning his trade, but you could just tell there was something that clicked with him, and he just really enjoyed his time. He loved being at Millwall. And all I remember is the power that man actually had at that age was phenomenal. I remember it actually reminded me when I was at Cardiff and Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank came to retire at Cardiff in his last few seasons, and the power he had. And I was only thinking, geez, imagine the power he had when he was in his prime. And Harry had that. Harry had that power where as a keeper, you'd be making saves and your elbows would be getting hyperextended. You'd be feeling the power in your palms and you're going, Jesus, this lad's got definitely something here. And the way he finished with absolute pace and power was phenomenal. It would be past you before you'd even see it. Like, so he always had that gift. And even what's his name came that had to retire as well with the brain concussion from Spurs.
Oh, Ryan Mason.
And Ryan was a fantastic type of player as well. But I think it was a great experience for him to experience Millwall and the type of club what it actually is. But I definitely feel Millwall would have stood to Harry, and it'd be interesting to see what his thoughts are now.
What his thoughts were, yeah, on Millwall, made at Millwall. Apparently, that's what a lot of our fans like to say. Yeah. You only you played 30 appearances that season. You had a couple of spells out of the team. Was that due to injuries or?
Yeah, that was due to we came up and like what I said, like that with Kenny and stuff. Had a great relationship with Kenny, and we had a bit of I suppose a bit of a blow up after one of the games against Peterborough, and then our relationship never really kind of recovered after that. Then I got taken out with the team for a couple of games, and I got myself back in again. But it really seemed to that loss of relationship with Kenny really seemed to struggle with my own esteem and my own confidence. And that really affected me big time, because I felt then that Kenny didn't kind of have my back. And there was a serious kind of breakdown in our relationship in that sense, even though we were kind of getting on, but it was never the same. It was never of, I brought David in, and, he always used to say, apparently to Tony Burns, that if I went anywhere, the first person I bring with me is David Forde. Yeah. And Kenny told me that. And then all of a sudden that wasn't there anymore. So that was quite a difficult time for me at Millwall. And like that as well, I was just like that. You go through these spells as a footballer, your confidence gets hit. And there was periods and times in games where, I let myself down, I let the team down. And, Kenny was, he was right at the time to take me out and to bring Mike Taylor in. Yeah. And the beauty of that at the time was we were fighting for it taught me a lot about myself in that situation, because really it was about, I wanted to stay. I could have thrown my prams out. I could have, said, right, I want to leave and I want to go, but it was never really about that. Yeah. And for me, it taught me a lot about my own patience and my own tolerance levels, that I said, I think they thought that I was going to leave. And I said, no, I said, I'm here. This is my club. This is where I met, and this is where I want to be. And I'll make it back. So whoever came in, I supported them. Mike Taylor came in, and he was fantastic for my career. He evolved my career even more so, and just to watch him play and to train with the guy, and those conversations we used to have during training and sessions and stuff like that, that when I did get back in, I did get my chance, I was ready for it. And that's the thing. I think a lot of the times footballers don't deal with that level of disappointment, that when they're taken out of the pitch and taken out of the game, they're still caught in the disappointment of it. Where when they do get the opportunity, they're still caught in the frustration and the anger and the irritation of what's happened before. So I had a quick switch in that, and I thought, right, I'm ready to rock here. I'm ready to get back into being Millwall's number one again.
Mate, so honestly, it's like you could have written my notes. I've got Mike Taylor, veteran, and then the question I've written down was, what's it like to train with keepers? Because I played a very low level of non-league as a goalkeeper, but you always want that shirt. And I couldn't personally be friends with a person. I'd be respectful. I'd be trained with them. But would you want to get too close to another goalkeeper because he's got the only shirt available at the club?
Yeah, I just I'm the job I'm doing now, and I suppose we might get onto that later on, around coaching, mentoring, and personal development, and the psychology and emotional well-being of it, and building relationships, and building the relationship with yourself, and building the relationship with others and teammates is something that I actually do now, and something that taught me a lot about these types of behaviors and interactions, and how we're actually viewing them, and how we're actually looking at them from the team level. And it's all very egocentrical. It's all very based around the individual and their place and position within the team, where it doesn't really come into the consciousness or the psyche of understanding the team and the club and that organization, that if we get this right, if I get myself right, we get the team right, and we get the club right, and then we're operating from a whole different space. And I was only talking to one of I work with a young professional goalkeeper, and he was talking about that, and it was actually, it's funny, it's uncanny you talk about that now. And I was telling him about Mike Taylor and our relationship, because what I did was I figured out that I can learn from this man. What can I learn from him? He's been there. He's been Northern Ireland's #1 goalkeeper. He's been, Fulham. He's been to Birmingham. He's played in the Premier League. Top class keeper. What can I learn from him? Plus, as well, he was an absolute gentleman. He was an absolute, and I still speak to Mike today.
That's a great attitude. Don't hate on him. Just think what you can learn from him and take forward.
100%, because I knew that eventually it'd get my turn. And how would I want him to respond to me? How would I, if I support him unconditionally, if I give him my absolute everything, that I serve right, that I give him everything, that when it comes my turn, I'd like them to continue the same. And that if we're as adults, oftentimes we grow up as footballers very immature, and we're still boys, and that's a boy mentality. We're not being men in those situations. And when we adopt it and be a man in the situation, now all of a sudden we have a different level of maturity running through the team, and how we operate and how we interact with each other. Because then we have a whole different team dynamic going on. And like that between keepers, it's a different type of dynamic than we have going on between each other. Because we know that we both want to play, but that choice is often taken out of our hands. It's not something we choose. It's the managers or external sources. So why be bitter or hate someone that's in the same position as you? It's because it's out of your hands.
Yeah,
so that's one thing I learned from playing goals.
Absolutely spot on. So let's move on to the 2012-13 season. It's a not very good one league-wise, but will always be remembered for the FA Cup run, of course. Two notable transfers in. Great centre-half pairing is Big Mark Beavers and Danny Shitu.
Big Beavers, the baby giraffe. Yeah. Yeah. We used to call him the baby giraffe. And I have so much time for Mark Beavers, because Mark Beavers probably said something so poignant to me in the changing room that made so much sense to me, that I was battling with my own demons within my own head. And we were playing a game. We played a couple of seasons or whatever, and this is probably coming to my end of my career. I know I'm going on a bit here. And it was 2017, I think, or 2016. And Neil had just taken over as manager, and I'd come out with a team and stuff like that. And it was one of Neil's first kind of games involved and stuff. And I think we had a bad result at home midweek. And we came in after the game, and there wasn't really a lot said. And I was sat there and I was thinking, right, I could play this two ways, pretty much like what we were saying. I could be bitter and angry and resentful and absolutely, put Neil in a precarious position, or I can look after the team and look after everybody else and look after the club, and that's always the place I came from. So that's the approach I took. And I said certain things about certain individuals and certain team dynamics and stuff. And afterwards, I said to myself, I went into the shower and I came out afterwards, and I had a towel around me, and I was sitting on the bench. And I wasn't playing. I was actually a sub at this stage. And I just thought, Jesus, Forde, I said, why don't you just keep your mouth shut? Why don't you just put your glove in your mouth for once and keep your mouth shut, Have you said this in the changing room? Yeah, this in the changing room after the game. So Mark Beavers came out of the shower afterwards, and he just turned around and he looked at me, and he could tell that I had the towel over my head, and I was going through it, and I was just thinking to myself, why did I bother even saying anything? And he turned around to me and he said, that's why we love you, Forde. And I looked up and I went, Jesus. I says, why is that, Mark? He says, you always say what we're all thinking. And I thought, wow, that's made so much sense to me for years. Yeah. Because I'd go into change rooms, I'd go into those environments, and I'd feel and I'd sense different things. And I'd always say things, and I'd always question myself. And as a leader, you go into those places and you always question, you always doubt that. Did you say the right thing or do the right thing? But in that moment, and if you're listening to this, Mark, it's it was one of the biggest things, and oftentimes we don't realize the influence of what one person can actually say to us. And that made so much sense to me. That was amazing. That actually changed my mindset in a lot of things. So like that, it was a big moment.
From an outsider looking in as well, from my perspective, a fan of the club, you was very vocal on the pitch. You was very vocal in good situations, in positive situations. So you're not going to step away from that when something negative needs to be said.
Yeah, totally. It was just something that I felt compelled to say at times, and oftentimes I got it wrong. You don't always get it right and stuff like. But there's certain times and certain situations where you look at, right, is this going to benefit me, or is it going to benefit the team? And I was always, it was always about the team for me. It was always about being the team, and it was always about Millwall and being part of that. And like in those situations, as I said, things get said, and sometimes they need to be said. And that's I think, to last a period and last a time at the club, is you got to speak your truth. You got to be able to express that in a way that, that you're not ultimately trying to hurt anyone, but ultimately you have to not hurt yourself in that, because there's times where you come away from situations where you might necessarily say something and you beat yourself up over it, and you'd say, I should have actually said something there. I could have actually made a difference. So that was just part of my makeup and part of the job and the role that I had at Millwall. And I lived through it. I loved it.
Well, something definitely switched as well. So you was understudy at points to Mike Taylor, but in the 2012-13 season, you dislodge him after 5 or 6 games, and you get your number one slot back. Was things resolved between you and Kenny, or you just trained so hard and determined to prove him wrong so much he couldn't leave you out?
I think so. I think he was surprised by my reaction. I think over the years where a lot of players spit their dummy out and they think, right, it's time to leave, it's time to move on. I was so resilient. I was the fact of, I'm actually going here. I'm staying, and I'm going to win my shirt back. And it was such a hard thing to do, because I had to adopt a new attitude going in every morning. Like what you said, it was so hard to get up every morning and go in and actually realize, that's my shirt. I'm the number one, and I don't actually have it anymore. But yet, on the same hand, I had to battle those demons within myself to actually turn around and say, well, look, I have to support Mike in this. I have to support the team. I support the club. I have to take myself out of the situation. And then when the chance arrives, so you have to have serious levels of patience and serious levels of determination, that you can constantly, when those feelings and those emotions kind of come up, that you can actually handle them. And then when the chance came, I was like, right, I'm in the right place for this now. It's just giving me a serious hunger. I want my shirt back. And like what I said, something clicked in my game and my performance. Mike Taylor had said some things to me that, like what I said, the influence of what one person can say to us, and what he said to me in terms of the goalkeepers and the standard and the people that he said. He turned on to me one day and he said, the only person I've ever seen with feet work like you, he said, is Ben Foster. And the level of goalkeeper he was comparing me to was phenomenal. And I just grew, I just magnified. I just thought, wow, I feel 10 feet tall here. And it started to show in my game. I started to get that freedom in my game in terms of my distribution and working with Kevin Pressman and Mike on those levels. And I just started to realize that, whoa, my potential is only really starting to come now in my early 30s.
Early 30s. Yeah, you said, it's an interesting one. You said you struggled with it mentally, and I always sympathise with footballers, because if I'm doing a normal 9 to 5, I go home at the end of that day, I switch off from work. No one else really knows what's going on there other than fellow colleagues. As a footballer, you can't ever really get away from it, can you? It's on TV. You've got fans having opinions on their online forums or on social media. So, and their opinions at times won't be right about the situation. It's what's actually going on. It's very hard to step away from it, isn't it, and switch off, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And the modern day footballer as you said, it's more difficult now, isn't it? You have websites, you have Twitter, there's so much access into your space and into your environment that trying to create those barriers and trying to create those boundaries, and healthy boundaries, is very, very difficult. Yeah. And everyone's just waiting to have a little chip at you, or people are waiting to applaud you. And like all footballers, people love the adulation and like that as well. The adulation's great, but can you actually handle the fact of the other hand and the other side of the coin, that when it's not going so well?
Yeah.
So understanding that, why involve yourself in that type of situation and that type of environment. But that comes with age, and that comes with maturity. But like that, I like what I said, I got my physical maturity into a great place. My mentally, I used to think, do I actually have a mental problem, and struggled with my mentality. And I don't think I did. And I've looked long and hard at this. And this is something, I'm writing currently in my own book at the moment, is around my mental strength and my mental resilience. Because if I struggled mentally, how could I get up every morning? How could I go into that type of environment, a ruthless environment of a football pitch and a football training ground and a football stadium, and cross that white line every week? So if I had mental issues or mental problems and a mentality thing, that wouldn't have been the case. And where I actually struggled was my emotional body and my emotional maturity. That's what I struggled with. It was the fluctuations of dealing with that roller coaster, that sense of up and down, that sense of extreme highs and extreme lows, falling off the cliff face. That's where I really struggled, and having that lack of emotional literacy or emotional ability to express how I really, really felt.
Yeah.
And, people talk about that being, I'm a firm believer that our greatest strength is in our vulnerability and being able to express that. But we all grow up thinking, oh, well, boys don't cry, and, don't be talking about the softness and the emotions. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that can relate to that on this phone call. So for me, that's really where I started to understand what football has taught me. It was a journey about myself and my own discovery about where I am and where I'm going towards. And, to experience that in such an environment like Millwall has been, I can't describe to you the impact that it's had on my life has been astronomical.
And as well, with all footballers, it's definitely a high pressure job. But as a goalkeeper, you let one through your hands, it's in, mate. It must be more high intensity than any other position. I would have thought. Oh
yeah, there's nothing worse, as you said. No matter what level, like where the one crawls through your legs, or and they always, the hardest ones was the slow to medium balls. Do you know what I mean? A little slow ball coming at you, and you're like, oh my god, what's this like?
Not long to think about it.
You could deal with it. And probably one of the lowest points I probably had at Millwall, and one of the lowest points I had at the Den was the Oxford Cup, the Payne Trophy. We played Oxford United in the Payne Trophy live on Sky. And what I can only describe as when the ball got to the wing, when he got wide of the goal and he hit, the ball's coming at me. And I don't know what happened that day, but the ball just went. I don't know where it went. I could not see it anymore. It just blacked out, right? And next thing I look, I'm like, it's actually gone in and went in under me, like what you said, in through my legs. And I just thought, oh my God, did that just happen? And I probably 2 minutes before that, I probably ran one of the best saves I've ever made at Millwall. I made a save onto the crossbar that was barely seen. I just made a flick onto the crossbar, bounced down and came out. And then you're just thinking, you make a save like that 1 minute, and then all of a sudden you let one through your legs. And and it was probably the moment that sealed my fortunes at Millwall.
Before we get onto that, let's talk about some more good times. Let's talk about the cup run of 2012-13, of course, reaching the FA Cup semi-final. Let's talk about some games along the way. Aston Villa at home, 2-1, round 4.
Yeah, that's like, that goes back. That's very similar to the Huddersfield game that night. Full house atmosphere, full of superstars. Shay Given was up the other end, the Irish counterpart. They had a serious team, and I think we were practicing. That goal was set up as well. We were practicing corners, and I think Lehigh was marking Danny Shittu, and we thought, right, all we have to do is vacate the area, just let Big Dan just run up to it and absolutely chew him up. And lo and behold, great delivery, and Danny just ran onto it and absolutely powered it home. Like, how that man could head a ball was phenomenal. Like, he could head a ball 50, 60 yards, not a problem. He was a man mountain, and a great guy. So like that as well. Talk about a gentleman off the pitch. Like, he was such a gentleman, but like that, he'd be bench pressing 140 kilos. Like, and you'd be just thinking, that's one lad I would not like a slap off, like,
He almost didn't look like he was built like a footballer, did he? He was like top heavy. He was so muscly. You'd thought if you might want to scale it down a bit, you'd probably be a little bit more nimble and stuff on the pitch.
No joking. I seen about 3 masseuses massaging one of his quads one day. And he was getting a massage one day, and I was just looking at his quad, and I was thinking, I'm a big man, and I was thinking, I was like on the other bed, like putting my 2 quads together like this, going, yeah, that's definitely the same size as one of his. You know, he was a big man, like, you know, and he was great for Millwall as well. He was fantastic captain. I think he got Player of the Year as well. And like that, that was the year he got Player of the Year, wasn't it? The cup run, was it? Just
have the characters like you and him and Jimmy Abdul around it. It's just put people that fit the criteria of Mill perfectly, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And like what we said, it's important to have those type of people to bring the culture of the club through, and to bring it through what's expected. You know, sometimes you have to have that. You have to understand what the fans want, what the club want, what the culture is about and stuff. And the only way they can actually find out that is through experience, and who is the best experience, who has that knowledge is the players that have gone before. And it's like it just gets passed down through. It's like a legacy that gets passed down through the players, you know, and it keeps filtering on down through. And as you said, the legacy of those types of players from the players of yesteryear, that comes right through. So yeah, we just try to embody that and embrace it as much as we can.
And then Big Dan does the business again. Blackburn away, quarter-final replay, another header. Another absolute belter. I think it was a wet night up there, and it was a replay, wasn't it? Because we drew. It was a dab replay on a Sunday at the Den, and we got up. I think it was a Tuesday or Wednesday night again. We got up there, and we beat them, and they were disgusted because they were full sure they were going to beat us, and like that we end up getting to a semi-final of the FA Cup. Unfortunately, we had a shed load of injuries. And I definitely believe that if we didn't have so many injuries and a shed load of standing positions, we would have definitely challenged Wigan that day, and we would have given them a far better game than, because we were doing quite well in the FA Cup. I definitely think we would have given them a good run for their money, at the very least. And then they go on to win the FA Cup, which is insane against Man City. It was a bit of a non-event that day, really. I think Chris Taylor across it when he hit the bar, but other than that, you had a very busy afternoon. You played well that day. I remember you making a great save from a long range left foot.
Yeah. It was a very wet, very wild, windy day, and like that, we never really threw a punch. I think we had. I think Sean St.Ledger was playing the centre midfield, like, you know. So that summed up our day. But actually, that reminds me, that brings you on to the next story. Is after that game we play last game of the season. We stay up last game of the season, don't we? To Derby. We played Derby away and they beat us. So that means more or less we're actually down. So thankfully, lo and behold, our neighbours, the good old Palace, they actually win. They come back to beat Peterborough 3-2 to get into the playoffs. And then that means Peterborough go down and we stayed safe after getting beat. So we got to the FA Cup semi-final. We managed to stay up in the last game of the season thanks to Palace. And we're going over to the fans at Pride Park. And Sean St.Ledger's walking over, and he had these pink Nikes, pink Nike boots, you know, and he takes them off and he launches them into the crowd, right? And the boys are throwing gloves. 2 minutes later, we're walking back, and the boots come back. Someone's launched them back.
Of course, Ledger, don't want your boots.
It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I was thinking, someone's launched his boots into the fans, someone's thinking, yeah, and someone's just gone, nah, you can have them back.
No, you're all right, mate. Oh, my God.
Exactly, yeah, so
did the players get on? Did you get on him for that as players, or did that not get mentioned?
Yeah, if next time I see him, I'll be saying it to him straight up. I'd be like, lad, how's them pink boots, like, you know? Yeah, he was baffled by it. He didn't know what to do. He was just like, he was stunned by it, like, you know.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So that wraps up the 2012-13 season. Then, of course, Kenny Jackett leaves the club. Before I interviewed you today, I was going to think, oh, that's going to be a bad thing for you. Obviously, he brought you to the club, but as you were saying, by this point, your relationship was strained. So, what was your thoughts on Kenny leaving the club?
Yeah, it was actually good because we went to the Player of the Season in the May. And I'm trying to think who got Player of the Year that year. I can't remember. And we were at the do or whatever, and I remember everyone was clapping, everyone was standing up, and I was just looking over at Kenny, who was sat beside John Burleson. And I just noticed, I just said, there's something not right here. There's something not right. I think Kenny had left the building, I think emotionally, physically he was there, but I think emotionally, mentally he'd bounced, and you could definitely feel that. So when the announcement was made, I was like, I wasn't so shocked, because by the time the end of the season started to come in, you could feel that Kenny was kind of like, right, have I taken this ship as far as I can? And he did a great job, in terms of where the club could have been in League Two to, consolidating the club in the Championship.
Steve Lomas comes in as manager. What are your thoughts on that? How was he for you as a manager?
Well, I knew Steve well from when I was at West Ham, and as a captain, he was a great man. He was a great captain and a great leader on the pitch, and I know he'd done well at St. Johnstone. I always knew that was going to be really difficult, especially as a former West Ham captain and as a former West Ham man, to come in and for the fans to win them on side. And like that, it was going to go one or two ways. It was going to go drastically wrong, or it would have went incredibly well. Where like that, I think the Millwall fans, as you said, if you can come in and prove that you've got the club's best heart and you got the soul of the club, you got the whole intention of the club and the culture of the club, and that you can turn it around and give them your all. That's all they want to see at the end of the day. If you can give Millwall 100%, that's minimum requirement. And not saying that he didn't do that, but I definitely think he found it difficult in terms of, some of the signings he brought into the club, and they weren't specifically, as we said, Millwall types, and understanding the club and the nature of what it takes to be successful at the club. I think that was probably the biggest difficulty, is that he tried to make it something that it's not, and tried to sign players on name and caliber more so than a fit.
Exactly. You still got some good results though. Beat Charlton and Leeds, as we say, always is a given, but there's some very heavy defeats. 4-0 Birmingham, 5-2 Bournemouth, a 5-1 defeat at home to Derby. As a player, especially as a goalkeeper, I say Kenny Jackett always had the fans on board. Did you start for the first time to maybe see a different side of the fans?
Not necessarily. I think the biggest thing with the fans was they were probably more disappointed with. I think the biggest thing, I think Millwall fans don't mind losing. It's how we actually lose.
Yeah,
that's the thing. I speak to this all the time. Like I do some like corporate events and doing speaking events and stuff like that. Like, and people ask me what was it like in Millwall, and I say I can tell you a story, and I share this story with them many times. We're playing Birmingham, and you probably remember the night Big Zigic was playing. He was on about 60 grand a week playing the Championship at the time, and we got reduced down to, was it 8 or 9 men? I think it might have been 8 men. We might have 3 sent off, and we beat 6-1. And those 7 or 8 players or 9 players, whatever is left on the pitch, gave it absolutely everything. We gave it 100% on that. We ran every ball, chased every ball. We got dicked, we got pumped. But I've never come off to a standing ovation, and I've never seen in all my time in football a team come off to a standing ovation at 6-1. Because I swear to God, it was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. And the fans clapped because they knew that we'd given it all, and due to unfortunate circumstances of the referee's decisions or a bit of stupidity with a sending off or whatever it was, but we gave it our best. And I think as that sums it up for me at Millwall, is that if you can give it 100%, if you can give it absolutely everything, they'll take that. It won't be nice, but they can at least accept that,
Yeah, spot on, mate. Lomas gets sacked. Ian Holloway comes in. To be fair, Byron Webster on, Aidan O'Brien on, Jimmy Abdul on, all said good things about Holloway.
Yeah, to be honest, I loved Ollie. And I think for me, he absolutely expanded my mind in football. And in terms, I was probably in the prime of my career, and he seen something in me that not many keepers or not many coaches had seen. And like that, he brought in a way of playing football that totally transformed how I was perceived and how I perceived myself as a goalkeeper, in terms of my distribution, in terms of finding fullbacks, in terms of finding, passes and ways out, and to set up opposition or set up counterattacks. And he just totally changed my ability to play the game, and give me a whole different perception of how the game is actually played. And it was very enjoyable. It was very enjoyable when things were going really well. And then we got a bit complacent, and we started to have some poor results. And then within that, a bit of an incomplacency started to kick in, and we started to struggle after that. We really started to struggle, which was unfortunate. But in terms of different ways of playing, different formations, in terms of learning as a footballer, there was huge learning in that, because Ollie's greatest thing was his enthusiasm, and oftentimes his enthusiasm spilled over, and it was very infectious. But oftentimes you just wanted a manager to come in and actually be firm and resolute, and actually, it's sometimes, like what we said, you got to bring that balance in. Sometimes you got to be direct. You got to be direct in your message and hit someone between the eyes, and that's doing someone a favor as well. And sometimes you got to be indirect, and you got to put your arm around them and doing them all that, So I definitely feel that was a big part in the way Ollie did his management. But who am I to say? But he's had an amazing career. He's done, getting Palace up and everything else. And I really thought we're onto a winner. To keep us up that year was a gift in itself, to be honest, because we played some fantastic football.
So he kept us up. That was leading on to my next question. The 2014-15 season, obviously, very disappointing one. He's in relegation. Was you surprised he got as long as he did in the second season? I mean, Lomas didn't get nowhere near as long. He saw out the previous season. He got, I believe, Neil Harris didn't take over until around March. Yeah,
it was. I think we'd started that season very well again. I think we were up around the playoffs, and I had gone away with an international. I'd gone away with Ireland around October, November, and I remember we were in a good place as a team. And I think Ollie had gone away as well, and left somebody else in charge. And I remember just coming back into the changing room. I remember coming back, and something fundamentally had shifted. Something during that period, something had happened within the group or within the team that had changed the vibration of the team and the energy of the group and stuff like that. And we never seemed to recover after that. Whatever actually happened, I don't know. I wasn't actually there, and I remember that being very, very a standout time in my own mind. And then we struggled like that. We struggled with a lot of games. And I think Ollie then started making some rash decisions, with signings and even formations and trying to, recapture 2 or 3-0 downs and, going 5 up top and 1 at the back and really going for it, as if we were Barcelona, And so he did try, and some of them paid off sometimes and we got our results. But because we expended so much energy trying to get those results, we struggled in the following games and stuff. So it was very strange considering where that could have actually been and where we could actually went to with that. And then like that, Neil had come in and as you said, to steady the ship after being relegated. But we should never have been relegated that year. I think what cost us dearly that year was a goal scorer. We had, and it still amazes me, I still scratch my head with this, I had 16 clean sheets that year in the championship after a relegation team. And that's unheard of. With 16 clean sheets, you could be getting promoted. So to keep 16 clean sheets and get relegated was a hard pill to swallow. And I think our highest goal scorer that year had 5 goals and stuff. So that's really where I think a big breakdown came down in the side, where we were creating loads and loads of chances, and we were creating some amount of chances per game, and we weren't capitalising on them.
I think obviously Lee Gregory had joined the club at that point, but that's before he sort of really got into the swing of things. As I said, it was a disappointing season, 2014-15, relegated at the FA Cup in the 3rd round. But a personal highlight for me, and one the fans still talk about, especially after I posted the photo the other day of you landed a straight right on a Bradford player's jaw in the FA Cup, knocked out.
It was a
terrific night, by the way, at Valley Parade.
Yeah, and I think that was the kind of the wheels started to kind of come off within the group as well around that time, and there was a lot of frustration within the group and stuff. And then all of a sudden, we found ourselves 1, 2, 3 down at the Valley Parade, never really got going. And then there was a melee on the side of the pitch. I think Donny tried to get a ball or whatever, and then a few people, there was a scuff. And I just came running in to break it up. And I think John Stead was there. And unfortunately for John Stead, as I've come in and I've gone to grab his shirt, I just brushed his chin ever so gently with the shirt.
But no, I'm going to do it at this point. The photo is going to be put on the screen, so...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the photo does me no justice, but yeah. So that's what happens. Yeah, we had a bit of a handbags and stuff like that, like, you know. But
yeah,
as you said, you wake up in the press the next morning and it's like a keeper throws a right hook and you're thinking, Jesus, that's a bit hardcore, that's a bit rough. But it was something and it was nothing. Do you know what I mean?
So a personal highlight of mine for the season, that one, but it ends in relegation. Neil Harris takes over, as we said. What was that like for you to have an ex-teammate now be your gaffer? Was that a difficult transition?
It wasn't really, because I had a conversation with Neil and I said, look, I understand, you know, we were, you know, mates on and off the pitch. I understand you have a difficult job to do and you'll have decisions to make that sometimes I won't be best pleased with, or there's going to be things I'm going to do you won't be best pleased with. But look, I said, I support you, I got your back, and whatever you have to do, you got to do. So when Neil came in, there was rumours of me, you know, going to other clubs and clubs coming in and the potential of me leaving and stuff like that. There was a level in it where I did get distracted, probably for the first time when I first came to the club, where I was thinking, right now things have changed, where I'm number 1 with Ireland. We're fighting to get to the Euros. I need to be playing football. I've had phone calls from the Irish management team. There's a bit of pressure coming on there, and I'm thinking, right, I need to be playing in the Championship, or do I stay and, you know, play with Millwall and get myself back, get back up to the levels where we were actually at, like. And the disappointing thing that came in for me really was like that, after keeping 16 clean sheets. The relegation really affected me. I lost my position with Ireland probably just a few months before that, unfairly, which I thought, because my form, even though we were having a tough time with relegation, my form was, my performance levels were still extremely high. So that was very, very frustrating. So like that, my confidence was just probably at its lowest at the time and stuff. So then when I came back, and, you know, there was just a lot of things really that weren't really kind of adding up for me at that time, you know. So young Jordan came in and did fantastically well. And like that as well, where he'd come in and I thought, right, he's going to play. He's going to play Jordan, and I think Neil had to make a choice as well, because Neil had to make a statement as well. You know, he had to make a statement to the team, to the fans, and I certainly felt I was a bit of a sacrificial lamb. Yeah. And who better to make a statement than one of your key players? So that was unfortunate. That was disappointing, but that's football. You know, I don't hold that against Neil. He was doing his job. I understand that. He has his family and his wife and family and everyone else to look after. And look, you can look back at it now and say it was the right decision. But for me, it was a hard one to swallow.
Sorry, with Jordan Archer, it's never the right decision.
Yeah. Oh well, it's funny, because I remember, I'll never forget the header off the line. Like that was
Mate, he dined out on that.
I was sat on the bench, and I was thinking, I was looking at Mark Beavers going, "What have you just done there? By the way, what have you done? What have you done?" And then he heads it, and I was thinking, why didn't you just catch it? And then he was like, do you know what I mean? I was like, if you just catch that, you're thinking that couldn't be classed as a pass back. That could, do you know what I mean? He's just had a shot on goal. But I can understand his thinking in that situation was amazing, to head that over the bar, and the acrobatics and everything else involved was brilliant.
Yeah, you said that you felt he was a little bit of a sacrificial lamb, and it was a shame, because I saw for the next 3 years, Jordan Archer basically ruined every one of my weekends. But a younger generation were coming through at that time. Aidan O'Brien, Ben Thompson, Marlon Romeo. So you can understand what Harris did. He was trying to rebuild a younger side, I suppose.
Yeah, totally. Fresh ideas, spicing it up. I'm sure he had his directions as well from above, in terms of budgets, in terms of everything else. And that's just the nature. That's just the nature of the beast. That's just football. And it was great to see the likes of Ben Thompson, who we you know, that we nurtured along the way, and Aidan O'Brien, that when they came in as young rookies, that we took them under our wing, and to see them now today having careers and having those types of discussions. I remember pulling Aidan O'Brien, and he was, piss potting around and not looking after himself in the gym and stuff like that. And he had a pair of Paddy Power boxers on. And I said, what you want to be, what you want to do. He says, I want to play, I'd love to play for Ireland one day and stuff like that. And I used to say to him, I said, see those jocks you've got on, see those briefs? I said, Paddy Power. I said, that's what you need plenty of Irish Paddy Power. I said, now get into that fucking gym and do your weights. I said, if you want to get into that place and you want to have a career, that's what you need to do. So it's great to see that you've had an impact and an influence on those young men, no more than the great people that have an impact on my career over the years. And the beauty of that is truly amazing. And like that, Neil, as you said, Neil had a job to do, and that was that.
So it must have been, you come to Millwall, establish yourself quickly, back-to-back Wembley appearances, promotion, and FA Cup semi-final. Now it's sort of coming towards the end of your time there, relegation, and you're not getting the team. Was that tough to take? And when did you realise it was the right time to actually move on?
No, it was never easy to take. It was never easy to take. It was always a tough one to take, because I always felt I'd unfinished business at Millwall. I always felt even when I finished at Millwall, I wasn't really finished. And I thought by going to Portsmouth, it was a way of getting my confidence back. And I had an amazing year at Portsmouth. Portsmouth was, it's a fantastic club, very similar to Millwall, getting 18,000 at Fratton Park every week in League Two was amazing. To win the league and to go up as champions, keep 20 clean sheets, and I thought, I've done really, really well here. And I thought, Millwall have got to the playoffs, gone up at Wembley, and they're going back up. And I definitely thought there would have been a different type of conversation with Neil and with the club in general, in terms of, and it was a tough one to take, because considering I'd done 9 years at the club, and I was one away from spending 10 years at the club. And I definitely think I still would have had an influence at the club. The one thing I would say, and the one thing I do probably, and I've never really spoke about this, but I'll have this chat with and I feel this is the actual time, and the timing's actually right to have this conversation. The manner in which it was done, I was bitterly disappointed with. I was bitterly disappointed with getting a phone call in the middle of a little car park in the middle of Beckenham town, and finally realising that I'm having a call from the manager and the chairman thanking me for my time, and that was it. And I think that was really, I think it was a bit disrespectful, and two, I think clubs need to do better in that situation. And they wonder why players, and they wonder why those types of relationships get tarnished and stuff like that. Where why I say that is because it never gave me a chance to fully, the sense of bring closure to the journey of that. To spend that amount of time, to spend that amount of blood, sweat, tears, fears, the whole lot encapsulated in that, and to get a phone call in that manner to draw to that clues, I thought was pretty poor form, to be honest. Yeah. But that does not take away from the fact that I still have ultimate respect for John Burleson and Neil Harris and the club and everything else. But I do think clubs need to do better in those situations, because I would have loved to have gone back to the club. I would love to had a conversation with these men. I would have loved to gone back to the club in a situation, and I know the season's over or whatever, but gone back and definitely brought it to a healthier close and a healthier position for all parties. That I leave, I wish you all the best, you wish me all the best, and we can go and move on our ways. So that's something that I feel that was something that was how best to put it, was not done in the best taste, really, to be honest. And
one way to do it over the phone after all the service you're given to the club.
Yeah, totally, 100%. And as I said, that's just something, and that's the nature that it's actually happened. And I just hope that, if football clubs and, that we have to start doing better. We have to start doing better with people and by people in terms of how we can bring closure in these types of relationships.
Yeah, 100%, mate. You end up going to Pompey, then on to Cambridge. You only retired last year, didn't you?
Only retired last year, yeah, just over a year. So went to Pompey like that, had a great year, thoroughly enjoyed that. And I was going to retire. I was actually going to retire the thoughts were kind of crossing my mind. What a way to retire, after winning the league on the last game of the season. Getting carried off the pitch down at Fratton Park was pretty special. But unfortunately, I wasn't in that position to do so, financially and everything else. So I thought, right, I still have to put a roof over my family's head here and stuff. I still got to crack on. And plus as well, I had gone back studying as well. I was studying executive coaching, mentoring and personal development down at University of Portsmouth, and training with the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, like kind of building. A lot of people are doing their coaching badges, but I felt that was my way forward in terms of working with people on a psychological and emotional well-being, and studying philosophy and psychology and all those different practices and stuff. So that's the kind of the path I started on. And then I went to 2 seasons then at Cambridge, and 2 great seasons at Cambridge, and I really enjoyed my time at Cambridge, and a great club.
It seems like it's definitely the right way forward for you. Just speaking today and now, what a deep thinker you are, and the great detail. You remember everything, around your career. It's definitely the right step, in my opinion. Not that it counts so much, but just talking today, I can tell you're a very, very deep thinker.
Yeah, and that was it. Like, working on that level of personal development of myself, and having that level of kind of sensitivity and looking at life through a different lens. I was always, as you said, a deep thinker, and always in search of truth. And for me, it was just a natural transition. And then, just after I retired, I'd set those plans, and now I found myself as the CEO and co-founder of PATHFINDER Coaching and Development. And that has allowed me to facilitate high performance coaching and mentoring, and specializing in that with on a personal level, on a leadership development level, and providing them kind of one-to-one consultations with people, those types of workshops and master classes, and bringing that are available online and everything else. And it's just something that has really captured my spirit and captured everything that I'm actually about, and really learned from what have I learned from my experience, and how can I explore myself and explore that in other people, and help to develop them and help to maximize their potential, really. Yeah,
it sounds like a very very different and very interesting line of work. It's very easy to go into punditry or into coaching, is it? As an ex-player, I suppose 99% of people do it, but definitely an interesting path, man. What I'll do is I'll put the website link to your company in the description of this video, so people can get in touch.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Yeah, and like that, like as I said, and that was probably a key thing throughout this interview as well, and upon my reflections is, throughout my career as a footballer, one of the single most important things for me, and the most important element, to a successful team or an individual performance, is spirit. And that was something that always captured me, whether it was my individual spirit or the team spirit. And building that strong spirit together is, bringing that bulletproof morale to teams, and being involved in teams that, when that's strong, they're unstoppable. And when it's not so strong, where the problems that can actually cause. So that always kind of fascinated me, and, I was always hungry for that kind of consistent emotional state. And that has kind of led me to explore all those different elements of mentorship and psychology. And it's something that I definitely feel with that level of experience that I've gained within those high pressure environments, and seeing so many different types of leadership styles, so much success, so much failure, so many highs and so many lows. I knew deep down that interested me most. As I said, it was that human spirit, the human element of the game, and that's what it is. It's the spirit of people, and working with people, and seeing people that they can go on and excel, and like that, working with young men and young professionals, or whatever they feel that actually is. So I really appreciate you having me on today, and like that, if you can get my website up there and a few different things.
I'll share it around, and I'll put it on the screen, put it in the link. And if the Millwall fans want a little bit more David Forde in their life, sorting them out, setting them straight, then there you are for them.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, give it a go. I'll give them my best shot anyway. Do you know what I mean? I won't be fucking. I'll try not to fucking grab them, but they might need a few shakings. You know what I mean?
Nothing wrong with a good old bollocking off Forde. I'm sure they'd love it. But getting back to Mill, just finally, I always finish with these questions. I know you had a long, successful career at Mill, but I always ask if you can think of one of your best memory. I'll also throw at you as well your best save. as a goalkeeper?
Ooh, best save. Best save. Penalty save at Leeds was pretty special. It's hard. I hate doing best things because I've got so many best things. Penalty save. I've made a couple of double saves. Made a double save against Cardiff. That was pretty special against my old club. Made a save, a lob header from at Wigan. That was pretty special. And in terms of favourite moment, the year we got promotion was pretty special. And winning player of the year was particularly special as well. That really touched my heart because, you know, it was the fans voting, players voting, all that. That was a bit of a pinnacle as well. Like, you know, to receive that and to go down in that bracket of the caliber of players that had won it was special.
Brilliant, mate. And last question. Tonight you can go out for one last night out, one last great night out, probably somewhere in Beckenham, with 3-year-old teammates. Who are you taking with you? Millwall teammates.
Geez, that's going to be an interesting one. And why that's going to be an interesting one is I stopped drinking about 7.5 years ago. So the person I'd probably bring myself out, my old me. And the people that know will know. Yeah, exactly. So I'll bring myself out.
Just you, that's enough. Mate, honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, it was class. I really enjoyed it. So
thanks so much for your time.
I'd just like to wish the club, Millwall, all the best in the future and all the best for the rest of the season. You know, the future's bright and hopefully we can, you know, I'd love nothing more than to see Millwall in the Premier League. You know, it'd be amazing. It'd be amazing. And hopefully that's not too far away.
That's the dream, mate. Forde, thanks so much, mate. It's been brilliant. Yeah, like that. Just wanted to say thanks a million. And if you're interested or if anyone's interested in one-to-one mentorship, please feel free to get in touch. Either at David Forde on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And you can email me at david@pathfindercoaching.ie. So I really appreciate it, lads. And thanks a million. And bye.